Fell so fast from heaven, it's like someone clipped my wings. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. I forgive the pain you gave to me so long ago. Sleepless nights I laid awake just begging to let go. I almost got to suicidal thoughts, but you stepped in. An angel sent from heaven showed me how to live again. Now I'm falling, and I can't see the ground. Can we stop this gravity? It keeps bringing me down. I can't breathe, and I don't wanna die. Can we stop this gravity? 'Cause I don't wanna say goodbye. My love, I'm gone. I need to be strong. The darkness had tried to swallow me. Some days I fall, but I hear your call. I pray I don't hit the ground. Gravity. 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 Gravity.
Feel uninvited. Left home in West LA. I'm not excited. So uninspired. On my way to play the bay while you're alone. This girl's a wonder. She loves me, yeah. She needs to know I love her. I wonder if we'll make it through this summer. Just wanna touch like back when we were younger. Why don't you love me, love me, love me?
Hey, welcome to the stream. Welcome. So this is going to be more informational. I really was trying to get stuff working for FMOD for the beta 1.37. I recorded, I don't know, something like 6 hours of video talking through all of it. I was in the process of editing it last night, passed out, just straight up passed right out in my chair. Couldn't get it done. So, woke up this morning, took a look at the forums, made a couple of associations there, I had a day with the family, trying to work things through my head, as well as do stuff during the day with the fam. Check the forum when I get home. Realize that everything I've done up to this point is almost pointless, because they had released one of the stock trucks master files, and they don't really look anything like, well, not anything, but there are definitely some changes during this beta process. So I'm going to show you guys what they have right now. I don't know if it's going to change again, but at least this way you'll get to see what FMOD is, how it looks, some of the functions, stuff like that. So I have a pointer focus, which should come in handy. Hopefully that is something you guys appreciate. I think I'm going to turn off the keystrokes, though. So let me do that first. Okay. All right, so let's get into it. We're going to have a look-see at what FMOD is. My audio is good. So I may end up turning down the desktop audio even more depending on what's going on, but I just want to be able to, so you guys can see what's going on in the what's going on within FMOD, what it looks like. So I'll bring up a couple of things that I had done from before, and we can talk about those. So let's bring over to the desktop. All right, so down here, I did a video not too long ago about the trucks and how they changed and what the sound mods, what FMOD looks like in here. So specifically these files here, the GUID file, if we open that, we can see what's the parameters. So these are some of the parameters that are in the events that are in the 389. We're going to be looking at the 579. That's the one that they released for us to look at. Again, they released this for us to look at, but it is not for modification. It has its own GUI ID, and once you start editing that, it will overwrite the 579 sounds. Each file is unique, so you have to use the template and recreate your GUI ID every time. That way you get a different one each time. They didn't actually talk about that in the wiki, so make sure you look at that. So let's have a look at what this looks like. So you'll notice here in the banks section, there's Peterbilt _579. So this is the sound you would find in the folder where we just were in the 389. From here, it shows all the things that all the parameters, all the events that are tied to that. So they actually tied parking brake on and off and blinker on and off, stick blinker and blinker on and off, all to this, whereas initially the template only had engine, exhaust, and start bad in it. So you can change more than you think per truck. It will just essentially overwrite what's happening in the master file. The master always needs to be included. These just add to what's there, essentially. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you some of the events. I'm not too interested in this because it's basically just single files with no additions to anything. They just make one sound and they're tied to the animation. So it's not like it's a big deal, realistically. So the engine, this looks pretty complex. I think I'm gonna minimize this volume because it's kind of in my ear a little bit. So you see a bunch of different stuff. The important screens are up here. There's the timeline, which in the case of starting and stopping the truck is here. This is a complex sequence. You'll see this flag up here with a loop. And this is something that will kind of go over. I'll show you exactly what happens with this. So, for example, if I do play 0, rather if I play 1, so that's the default sound, the default startup sound. Now, if I turn off the solo, then you'll start to hear the engine right there. So say that's that. So we'll start it over. So that sounds about like what we would hear in the game. So that's how this works. The timeline is meant for the static sounds of starting and stopping. When you turn it off, it does the shutdown, which is play 1 and 0. So these are all modified here so that you don't get interference from these loop tracks. So you don't want unloaded to be playing before you start the truck. Once I press E or whatever your starting button is, you want to be able to hear the starter and then the engine afterwards. You don't want to hear the engine start and then the starter underneath it, right? So that's why these are all down to infinity and then there's a slow ramp up. However, in the RPM section, this is where you can see what it all sounds like. So they have loaded sounds, unloaded sounds, no fuel sounds, turbo, engine brake, and the start and stop are on the timeline page, so you're not going to see that. As well as load. These just change the volumes of the loaded section. Turbo, that's where the turbo file is, and how loud it is depending on what basically you're pressing the accelerator pedal is. The engine brake, this is the curve of the engine brake. It slopes sharply down as it gets to the end of its life. And then play is just 0 and 1. That has to do with the starter. So let's go back to the RPM so you can get an idea of what happens. As long as you press, if you go to the sound, and you make sure that loop is checked and cut is checked. So that's cut and loop. Then you will be able to do this. So then I can drag this Now there's no load and there's no turbo. So let's say I turn the turbo up to 50. But I want to hear what it's really sounding like at 1200 when we're going up a hill. And we get the turbo going and the load way up. Now you can really hear that it's super duper loud. So it's pretty cool. So there's the engine brake, depending on what RPM you're at. It really falls off after 800. So essentially it's just placing files in here, getting them to intersect smoothly as you go up the rev range. So there's no popping, they should all be seamlessly cut, which means they would start, this particular file would start on the same pitch and volume as the end of it. So if we kind of zoom in here, this part over here and this part over here should be the same pitch and volume. That way you don't get popping, you don't get it sounding like it's starting over again, because you don't want to hear a noise and then hear a pop and then start again. That's not what this is for. It's meant to be able to be looped constantly so it sounds like an actual engine and you don't get that like droning noise of something starting over all the time. So without actually doing this, it's kind of a little bit hard to explain what's going on, but it's good to see exactly what's happening. Now there's a couple of different windows that are important. There's the, that's not what I wanted. There's the mixer. So you can change individual files and sounds and volumes and all kinds of stuff, which is fun. There's the preset browser, which this is important because you're gonna, the parameters here need to be loaded appropriately, so you can have a look at these. So edit parameter turbo 0 to 1. Either the turbo is off or it's on, and then there's a small range in between, and then you can adjust the volume in there. RPM, this one is a little bit different. So they put the range from 0 to 300, 3000, just like it used to be in the game before they used FMOD. The initial value is always 0. In this case, play. This is the start and stop. So initial value, this is user continuous, play is the name, 0 to 1. The initial value is usually 1. So this is different from how it was set up initially when I watched the original video. Load parameter, this is 0 to 1, starts at 0. Break. Edit parameter 0 to 1, 0 initial. And this is going to be all the same. These are going to be the same, as well as the RPM. You can see 0 to 3000, etc. Now, you can go up here to the routing. This is very important as well. So for us, the group is going to be, we're going to be putting stuff into engine exhaust, well, truck exhaust, that this over here is going to be, or parameters are going to be installed in here. So engine, engine start bad, engine and exhaust. Those are all going to be pulled into these specific groups. So that's very important. If you want to edit any of these things, your interior stuff, that all needs to go under cabin interior. Now, in here, this is what I want to show for auto pitch. So in the case of how SES is doing it, this is unloaded to, so if we solo this and then we pick something where it's in there, so they've set the root pitch at 800, and then the minimum is 0.69. So it's only going 110 RPM. So that's how it sounds so smooth. It may not be the sound that you like, but that's why it's smooth. Now it looks like none of the volumes are changed other than the these here. So I'm going to assume that all of the sounds were pre-cut and what am I trying to say? Pre-adjusted to the appropriate sound levels that they wanted. So they didn't go in here and start jacking these up at all, or on the master over here. So then you can solo any one of these to see how they sound. And then you can press play like that. And then you have to go like that. And then you have to increase the brake. So that's how those all work. So it really is quite a powerful program. I'm pretty excited about learning more about it once it's kind of set in stone. But there are a lot of different pieces to it, obviously, and how you have to set things up. Hence all these different sheets and all the different negotiations of where this volume is and such. So I'm curious, actually, let's listen to No Fuel. I'm curious what that sounds like. So that's about where it would idle. So that's interesting. No Fuel is basically in gear but coasting. And that was something that was added later, I believe, because initially when 1.37 came out, the engines were basically quiet when you let off the gas, which is obviously not how they actually function in real life. But yeah, so a lot of tools to use in here, like I said, a lot of things to be aware of, and how, how it all works is, I'm going to save this for YouTube as well. The link to the FMOD discussion, I will leave in the description as well, if you guys want to check it out. But that's really what I wanted to do via this today. But I'm going to end up stopping the recording, I think, right now. And we will go over to here. And I will close this out. And then we can bring some music back in. So let's stop this recording now. So YouTubers, see you later. We'll check you on the other side.